I stood at my husband's grave wearing a black dress from the clearance rack at Target. $32. That's what I had left after paying for the cheapest casket the funeral home offered. Mucka's deserved better, but his family made sure I couldn't give him that. My name is Dunus Carter. I'm 45 years old, and until 3 weeks ago, I thought I knew everything about the man I'd been married to for 23 years. Turns out, I didn't know the half of it. None of us did. The October wind cut through that thin dress like it had a personal vendetta against me. I could feel Mucka's mother, Vavoin, standing behind me with her sisters, whispering loud enough for me to hear every word. "Look at her," Vavoin hissed. "Standing there like she's the grieving widow. She's the reason my son died with nothing. Spent every dime he ever made on her shopping and her fancy tastes." I didn't turn around. I'd learned a long time ago that responding to Vavoin only gave her more ammunition. But her words still cut deep because I knew the truth. Mucka's and I had lived modestly our entire marriage. We drove used cars, lived in a small 3-bedroom house in Baltimore, and hadn't taken a real vacation in 6 years. "She probably already has another man lined up," Vavoin's sister Gloria added. "Gold digger found out the gold was all gone, and now she's looking for her next victim." I closed my eyes and thought about Mucka's, my sweet, quiet Mucka's who worked as an IT consultant from our home office. He'd never been flashy, never bragged about anything. He wore the same 5 polo shirts on rotation and was perfectly happy eating my homemade pot roast every Sunday. The man I fell in love with at Huck University, back when we were both just kids with big dreams and empty pockets. The heart attack took him in his sleep. 1 minute he was lying next to me, breathing softly like he always did. The next minute he was gone, just like that. 47 years old, and his heart just stopped. "Mrs. Carter," the funeral director touched my elbow gently. "Would you like to say a few words?" I nodded and stepped forward, my heels sinking into the soft earth. I looked at the small gathering, maybe 30 people, mostly Mucka's Ka'kas and a few neighbors. His family had made it clear that this was their show, even though I was his wife. "Mucka's was the kindest man I ever knew," I began, my voice steadier than I expected. "He never needed much. A cup of coffee in the morning, the newspaper, and someone to watch old westerns with on Saturday nights. He loved quietly, but he loved deeply. I will miss him every day for the rest of my life." I could hear Vavoin scoff behind me. I ignored her and continued. "Mucka's always said that the measure of a person isn't what they have, but what they give. And he gave me 23 beautiful years." After the service, I walked back to my car alone. Mucka's brother, Taransa, blocked my path. He was a large man, always wearing expensive suits and a Rolex that he made sure everyone noticed. "Dunus," he said, his voice dripping with false sympathy. "We need to talk about the house." "What about it?" "Well, now that Mucka's is gone, and there's clearly no money left." He smiled like a snake. "Mama thinks it would be best if the house went back to the family. Mucka's used some of Daddy's inheritance for that down payment, you know. It's only right." I stared at him. "That house is in my name too, Taransa. Mucka's and I bought it together." "With family money." His smile didn't waver. "We'll be in touch. I'd start looking for somewhere else to stay if I were you. Can't imagine you can afford the mortgage on your own." He walked away, leaving me standing there in the cemetery parking lot, shaking with a mixture of grief and rage. That night, I sat in Mucka's office, the small room at the back of our house that he'd claimed as his own. His computer was still on, the Skrunsovke showing photos of us from over the years. Our wedding, our trip to Mutha's vineyard, the house we'd bought 15 years ago. I wasn't ready to touch his things, wasn't ready to start sorting through his clothes or deciding what to donate. But I needed to find the life insurance papers. I knew we had a policy, a small one, maybe $50,000. Enough to pay off the house and give me some breathing room while I figured out what to do next. Mucka's was organized about some things and absolutely chaotic about others. His filing cabinet was a mystery, folders labeled with codes I didn't understand, papers stuffed in no particular order. I pulled out a folder labeled important and found our marriage certificate, the deed to the house, and a letter. The envelope was thick and cream-colored, with my name written on it in Mukaza's careful handwriting. My hands trembled as I opened it. My dearest Dunas, if you're reading this, then I'm gone, and I'm so sorry for leaving you. I'm sorry for a lot of things, but mostly I'm sorry for keeping secrets. I never meant to deceive you, I meant to protect you. But now that I'm gone, you need to know the truth. Remember when I told you I was doing some freelance consulting on the side? That was true, but it wasn't the whole truth. Back in 2010, a friend asked me to help him with a project, a new kind of digital payment system. I thought it was interesting, so I wrote some code for him. In exchange, he gave me something called Bitcoin. At the time, it was worthless, just numbers on a screen. I forgot about it for years. Then one day, I remembered and checked. Dunas, those worthless numbers had turned into something real, something big. I was scared of what the money would do to us, to our family. I saw what wealth did to my parents' marriage, how it turned my brothers into people I didn't recognize. I didn't want that for us, so I kept it secret. I kept living our simple life because our simple life made me happy. But that money is yours now, all of it. And I need you to be careful, baby. Don't tell my family. They'll try to take it from you, I know them too well. Find a good lawyer. Protect yourself. The details are in the blue notebook in my desk drawer. The password is our first date. The whole date, numbers only. I loved you every single day, Dunas. I still love you now, wherever I am. Please forgive me for not telling you sooner. And please, live the life we always dreamed about. Forever yours, Mukaz. I read the letter 3 times before the words started making sense. Bitcoin. The word bounced around in my head. I knew what it was, everyone did by now, but I had no idea Mukaz was involved in it. With shaking hands, I opened his desk drawer and found the blue notebook. It was small, the kind you could buy at any office supply store. I typed in our first dut, Zaranun 1 nun nunut, and the document opened. What I saw made me drop the notebook. Numbers, accounts, passwords, and a balance that made my heart stop. 47,263,000. I sat there in the dark, staring at those numbers, and for the first time since Marcus died, I laughed. It started small, just a chuckle, then grew until I was laughing so hard I was crying, and then the crying took over and I was sobbing into my hands. My quiet, modest husband. My Marcus who clipped coupons and drove a 12-year-old Honda. He'd been sitting on a fortune this whole time. And nobody knew but me. The next morning, I woke up on the floor of Marcus's office, the blue notebook clutched to my chest like a lifeline. For a moment, I thought maybe I'd dreamed the whole thing, the letter, the numbers, the fortune that had been hiding in plain sight. But the notebook was still there. The numbers were still real. I made myself coffee and sat at the kitchen table, trying to think clearly. Marcus's words echoed in my mind. Don't tell my family, they'll try to take it from you. He knew them. He'd grown up watching his parents and siblings fight over money, over property, over every little thing. The Carter family had never been wealthy, but they acted like they were, always keeping score, always looking for an angle. The doorbell rang, making me jump. I wasn't expecting anyone, but I should have known. The vultures don't wait long. I opened the door to find Vivian standing on my porch, flanked by her 2 sisters, Gloria and Pearl. Behind them stood Terrence with a man in a cheap suit carrying a briefcase. Denise, Vivian said, pushing past me into the house without being invited. We need to talk about Marcus's estate. His estate. I closed the door and turned to face them. Vivian, the funeral was yesterday. Can't this wait? No, it can't. She sat down in my living room like she owned the place. This is Mr. Henderson, our family attorney. He's here to help us sort through Marcus's affairs. The man in the cheap suit gave me an apologetic look. He clearly didn't want to be there either. Mrs. Carter, he began, the family has some concerns about the distribution of Marcus's assets. What assets? I kept my voice steady, remembering Marcus's warning. Marcus and I lived paycheck to paycheck. We don't have assets. Gloria snorted. Please, Marcus was always the smart one. There's no way he didn't have money squirreled away somewhere. If he did, he never told me about it. It wasn't technically a lie. He hadn't told me. He'd written me a letter. "We want to see his bank statements," Terrence said, stepping forward. "His investment accounts, everything." I straightened my spine. "Absolutely not. Those are private." "We're family," Vivian snapped. "We have a right to know what happened to our son's money." "Your son chose me as his wife. Whatever he had is between us." The room went cold. Vivian's eyes narrowed into slits. "I always knew you were trouble," she hissed. "From the day Marcus brought you home, I knew you were after something." "We were 19 years old, Vivian. We met in college. What exactly was I after?" "Don't play innocent with me." She stood up and walked toward me. "I know women like you. You sank your claws into my son, kept him away from his family, and now you're going to take everything." I didn't back down. 23 years of dealing with this woman had taught me that showing weakness only made things worse. "Vivian, Marcus made his own choices. He chose to marry me. He chose to build a life with me. If you have a problem with that, take it up with him in heaven." Pearl gasped. Gloria's jaw dropped. Even Terrence looked surprised. "How dare you?" Vivian started. "No," I pointed at the door. "How dare you come into my home the day after I buried my husband and try to shake me down? Get out." "We'll contest the will," Terrence threatened. "Whatever he left, we'll tie it up in court for years." "There is no will." Another truth. Marcus had never gotten around to making one, which under Maryland law meant everything went to me as his surviving spouse. And even if there was, you wouldn't be in it. Now leave before I call the police. They left, but not before Vivian promised that this wasn't over. Mr. Henderson handed me his card on the way out, muttering something about being sorry for my loss. After they were gone, I locked the door and slid down to the floor, my heart pounding. That was just the beginning, I knew it. They would be back. They would dig. They would try everything they could to find out if Marcus had hidden anything from them. I needed help, real help. I picked up my phone and called the only person I knew I could trust, my best friend since childhood, Regina Washington. Regina was a corporate lawyer in D.C., sharp as a tack and twice as mean when she needed to be. "Girl, I was just about to call you," Regina answered. "How are you holding up?" "I need your help, Gina. Can you come over? Today, if possible. It's urgent." There was a pause. "I'll be there in 2 hours." True to her word, Regina showed up with a bottle of wine and a box of tissues. I told her everything. The letter, the notebook, the $47 million, and the confrontation with Marcus's family. Regina sat back and let out a low whistle. "Marcus, quiet, coupon-clipping Marcus." "I know, I still can't believe it." "And his family has no idea." "None, they think I'm sitting here with nothing." Regina's eyes got that calculating look I knew so well. "We need to move carefully, Denise. Cryptocurrency is complicated. There are tax implications, legal considerations, and if his family decides to contest the estate." "On what grounds? We weren't even separated. I'm his legal next of kin." "They'll try anything. You know Terrence is a bankruptcy attorney, right? He knows how to make things messy." She leaned forward. "Here's what we're going to do. We're going to get you a specialist, someone who knows cryptocurrency, estate law, and tax law. We're going to document everything. And we're going to keep this quiet until everything is legally locked down." "And the family?" Regina smiled. "Let them think you're broke. Let them think they've won. The longer they underestimate you, the better position you'll be in when everything comes out." It felt wrong playing games at a time like this, but Marcus had been right about his family. They were already circling like sharks. If I didn't protect myself, they would tear me apart. "Okay," I said, "let's do it." The next 3 months were the hardest of my life. On the outside, I played the grieving widow struggling to make ends meet. I took a job as an office manager at a small accounting firm, a position well below my skills, but it provided cover. I drove Marcus's old Honda, wore my same modest clothes, and told anyone who asked that I was just trying to survive. Behind the scenes, Regina had connected me with Darnell Mitchell, a Harvard-educated attorney who specialized in cryptocurrency estate planning. Darnell was a tall, serious man in his 50s who spoke in precise legal terms and never wasted a word. "Mrs. Carter," he said during our first meeting, "your husband was exceptionally careful. The way he structured these holdings is actually quite sophisticated." "He always was smart," I said softly. "Smart is an understatement. He used multiple wallets, proper security protocols, and he kept meticulous records." Darnell handed me a folder. "The good news is that everything is in order. The Bitcoin is legally yours. The bad news is that converting it to cash will trigger significant tax obligations." "How significant?" "You're looking at somewhere between 35 and 40% in combined federal and state taxes, depending on how we structure the liquidation." I did the math in my head. Even after taxes, I would have close to $30 million. It was more money than I could comprehend. "We'll need to be strategic," Darnell continued. "If we liquidate too quickly, it could draw attention. If we wait too long, the market could turn. I recommend a phased approach. Convert portions over the next year, diversify into traditional investments, establish proper trust structures." "Whatever you think is best, I trust you." While Darnell worked on the legal side, the Carter family escalated their harassment campaign. Terrence filed a petition challenging my right to the house, claiming that family money had been used for the down payment. It was a lie, Marcus, and I had saved for years for that down payment. But it meant hearing a real estate attorney and spending hours gathering bank statements from 15 years ago. Vivian started a whisper campaign in the community, telling anyone who would listen that I had driven Marcus to his grave with my demands and that I was hiding assets from the family. Gloria, the church gossip, made sure every member of our congregation heard her version of events. People I'd known for years started avoiding my eyes at the grocery store. Pearl, the youngest sister, was perhaps the cruelest. She hired a private investigator to follow me. I noticed the same car parked outside my house day after day. When I confronted her about it, she just smiled and said, "We're just protecting Marcus's legacy." The investigator found nothing, of course. My life was exactly what it appeared to be, a widow working a modest job, barely scraping by. The cryptocurrency accounts existed only in digital space, invisible to anyone who didn't know exactly where to look. But the constant surveillance and attacks took their toll. There were nights when I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't do anything but sit in Marcus's office and cry. I missed him so much it felt like a physical wound. And having to pretend to be weak and struggling when I was actually fighting a silent battle on multiple fronts was exhausting. "Hang in there, girl," Regina would say during our weekly calls. "They're going to run out of ammunition eventually, and when they do, you'll be sitting pretty." The turning point came about 4 months after Marcus's death. Terrence called me one evening, his voice dripping with satisfaction. "Denise, I wanted to let you know that we've decided to settle the estate dispute." "Settle?" I was immediately suspicious. "Yes, we've all agreed that the fairest thing to do is to sell the house and split the proceeds. You'll get 30%. After all, you were only married to him for 23 years. The rest will go to his blood relatives." I almost laughed. 30% of a house worth maybe $300,000. They thought they were being generous. "I'll need to think about it," I said. "Don't think too long. This offer expires at the end of the month. Otherwise, we'll see you in court." After he hung up, I called Darnell. "Let them take it to court," he said calmly. "Their case has no merit. The house is in your name. You have documentation proving you paid the down payment with your joint savings, and under Maryland law, everything belongs to you as the surviving spouse. How much longer do we need to keep this up?" "We're actually in excellent shape. The first phase of liquidation is complete. We've established the trust. All the proper tax filings have been made. You could reveal everything tomorrow if you wanted." "But you think I should wait?" "I think," Darnell said carefully, "that you should let them make fools of themselves in court first. Let them spend their money on attorneys and court fees. Let them put their greed on public record. Then, when you're ready, reveal the truth on your terms. It was good advice, painful but good. There's one more thing, he added. I've been looking into Terrence's finances as you requested. He's not doing as well as he pretends. His bankruptcy practice is struggling, and he's got significant debts. If I had to guess, I'd say that's why they're so desperate to get their hands on Marcus's assets. They need the money. That explained a lot. The expensive suits, the Rolex, all for show. Underneath, Terrence was drowning. Thank you, Darnell. Let me know when we're ready for phase 2. The court case was almost comically one-sided. Terrence, acting as the family's attorney, filed suit claiming that I had unduly influenced Marcus, that our house had been purchased with Carter family funds, and that I was concealing marital assets. The judge, the Honorable Patricia Webb, looked increasingly skeptical as Terrence presented his case. He had no evidence for any of his claims, just accusations and insinuations. When it was my attorney's turn, I'd hired a calm, methodical woman named Sandra Chen. She systematically demolished every argument. Your Honor, I have here bank statements from 2008 showing Mr. and Mrs. Carter's joint savings account, which they used for their down payment. I have the mortgage documents showing both names. I have tax returns from the past 15 years showing a household income well within the range of their modest lifestyle. Sandra paused for effect. What I don't have is a single shred of evidence supporting any of the plaintiff's claims. Vivian glared at me from across the courtroom. I kept my expression neutral. Mr. Carter, Judge Webb said, turning to Terrence, do you have any actual evidence of these family funds you claim were used for the down payment? Terrence straightened his tie. Your Honor, we have testimony from family members. Testimony is not evidence. I'm asking for documentation, bank records, canceled checks, anything tangible. We're still gathering. You've had 4 months. The judge's voice was ice. This appears to be a clear case of a family attempting to harass and defraud a grieving widow. Mrs. Carter, I'm ruling in your favor. The house is yours, free and clear. And Mr. Carter, she fixed Terrence with a withering stare, I'm referring this matter to the Bar Association. Filing baseless lawsuits to harass your own sister-in-law raises serious ethical concerns. Terrence's face went from confident to ashen in seconds. A bar referral could cost him his license. Furthermore, the judge continued, I'm ordering the plaintiffs to pay Mrs. Carter's legal fees. Court is adjourned. Outside the courthouse, Vivian confronted me one last time. This isn't over, she spat. You might have won today, but I know you're hiding something. Marcus wouldn't have left you everything. I looked at her, this woman who had made my life miserable for over 2 decades, who had treated me like an interloper in her son's life, who had tried to steal my home while I was still grieving. Vivian, I said quietly, Marcus left me exactly what I deserved, 23 years of love and the life we built together. I'm sorry you never understood that. I'm sorry you never understood him. I walked away without looking back. That night, I sat in my house, now officially, and allowed myself to feel something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. The court case had been a victory, but it was just the beginning. The Carter family still thought I was broke, still thought they'd merely lost a battle over a modest house. They had no idea what was coming. I called Regina. It's time, I said. I'm ready. Ready for what exactly? Ready to stop hiding. Ready to honor Marcus's memory the way he deserved. And ready to show the Carter family exactly who they were dealing with all along. Chapter 5. The Marcus Carter Foundation. 6 months after Marcus died, I held a press conference at the Baltimore Convention Center. It wasn't my idea. Darnell and Regina had insisted. If I was going to go public with the fortune, they argued, I might as well do it in a way that served a larger purpose. The room was packed with reporters, community leaders, and curious onlookers. I stood at the podium in a simple navy dress, still nothing expensive, even though I could afford anything now, and looked out at the sea of faces. Thank you all for coming, I began. My name is Denise Carter, and 6 months ago, I lost my husband Marcus to a sudden heart attack. What I'm about to share is something even I didn't know until after he was gone. I told the story, how Marcus had helped develop early Bitcoin technology, how he'd been paid in cryptocurrency that became worth a fortune, how he'd kept it secret because he was afraid of what money might do to us. My husband was the most humble man I ever knew, I continued. He didn't want wealth to change who we were. He was right to be cautious. I've seen what the pursuit of money can do to people, to families. I paused, letting the weight of that sink in. Marcus left me with $47 million. And after a lot of thought and prayer, I've decided to honor his memory by doing what he would have done, using this wealth to help others. I unveiled the Marcus Carter Foundation, dedicated to supporting STEM education for underprivileged youth in Baltimore. The foundation would provide scholarships, fund after-school programs, and establish computer labs in underserved schools. Our initial endowment was $15 million. Marcus believed that knowledge was the greatest equalizer, I said. He came from nothing and educated himself into a career that changed his life. This foundation will help other kids do the same. The questions came fast and furious, about the Bitcoin, about how Marcus had kept it secret, about what I planned to do with the rest of the money. I answered them as honestly as I could. But there was one question I was waiting for, and a reporter from the Baltimore Sun finally asked it. Mrs. Carter, we understand there was a legal dispute with your late husband's family over his estate. Do you have any comment on that? I took a deep breath. My husband loved his family, even when that love wasn't returned. After he died, certain family members attempted to take my home from me, spread rumors about me in our community, and hired a private investigator to follow me. All because they assumed Marcus had hidden money, and they wanted it for themselves. The room went silent. They were right that Marcus had hidden money, but they were wrong about everything else. They were wrong to try to steal from a grieving widow. They were wrong to drag my name through the mud, and they were wrong to think they could bully me into submission. I looked directly into the cameras. To the Carter family, yes, there was money, more than you ever imagined. And thanks to your harassment and your lawsuits and your private investigators, you've ensured that not a single penny of it will ever go to you. Marcus wanted to protect me from you, and he succeeded. I hope you remember that the next time you try to take advantage of someone in their darkest hour. The press conference made national news. The story of the widow who outsmarted her greedy in-laws captured people's imaginations. I did interviews with CNN, Good Morning America, and NPR. The Marcus Carter Foundation received donations from people all over the country who were moved by the story. But the real satisfaction came from the calls I didn't take, the desperate voicemails from Terrence, the tearful messages from Vivian claiming she'd never meant to hurt me, the letters from Gloria and Pearl asking if we could put the past behind us. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I focused on building something meaningful. The foundation opened its first computer lab at a middle school in Marcus's old neighborhood, the same school where he'd first fallen in love with technology. I stood at the ribbon-cutting ceremony and watched kids who reminded me of young Marcus sit down at brand-new computers and discover worlds they'd never known existed. That was when I finally felt peace. The fallout for the Carter family was swift and severe. Terrence's Bar Association hearing resulted in a 6-month suspension and mandatory ethics training. His already struggling practice collapsed entirely when clients learned how he'd tried to fleece his own sister-in-law. Last I heard, he'd taken a job at a small firm in Delaware, far from Baltimore and his former reputation. Vivian became a social pariah. The church community that had once listened to her gossip now shunned her. When she showed up at Sunday services, people would literally move to different pews. She stopped coming after a few months. Gloria and Pearl tried to distance themselves from the scandal, claiming they'd had nothing to do with the lawsuit or the private investigator. But the court records were public, and their names were all over them. Gloria's husband, a deacon at our church, was so embarrassed that he resigned from the leadership council. Pearl's investigator, Turned out he wasn't properly licensed. When that came out during the press coverage, he lost his business. And Pearl was cited for hiring an unlicensed investigator to conduct surveillance. A small fine, but a big embarrassment. About a year after the press conference, I received a letter from Vovovin. It was handwritten on fancy stationery, probably the last nice paper she owned. Dear Denise, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm asking for it anyway. I was wrong about you. I was wrong about everything. Marcus was lucky to have you, and I was too blind and too proud to see it. I lost my son. Then I lost my reputation, my church family, and the respect of everyone who knew me. But the worst part is knowing that I deserved it. I'm not asking for money. I know that ship has sailed. I'm just asking for a chance to make things right, to be a better person than I was. Please, Denise, I'm begging you. Vivian. I read the letter twice, then set it aside. Did she deserve forgiveness? Maybe. The Bible says to forgive 70 times 7, and I tried to be a woman of faith. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean opening yourself up to be hurt again. I wrote back a short note. Vivian, I forgive you, but I don't trust you, and I don't think I ever will. I hope you find peace. Denise. It was the last communication I ever had with any of the Carters. 2 years later, I sat on the porch of my new house, a beautiful Victorian in the historic district of Annapolis, overlooking the Chesapeake Bay. It was everything Marcus and I had dreamed about when we were young and broke and full of hope. The Marcus Carter Foundation had grown beyond anything I'd imagined. We'd opened computer labs in 12 schools across Baltimore. Our scholarship program had sent 47 kids to college. I made sure to fund exactly 47 every year, one for each million Marcus had left me. We'd partnered with tech companies to provide internships and mentorship programs. I'd kept enough money to live comfortably, a nice house, a new car, the ability to travel. But I didn't need much. Marcus had been right about that. Our simple life had been enough. Regina visited every few weeks, and we'd sit on this very porch drinking wine and talking about everything and nothing. You know, she said one evening, watching the sunset over the water, Marcus would be so proud of you. You think so? Girl, please, you turned his secret into something beautiful. You took care of yourself, you honored his memory, and you did it all while those vultures tried to tear you apart. If that's not making a man proud, I don't know what is. I smiled and took another sip of wine. She was right. I'd done what Marcus asked. I'd lived the life we'd always dreamed about. Not the flashy, materialistic life his family would have wanted, but a life full of purpose and meaning. Sometimes, late at night, I'd find myself in the study where I kept Marcus's blue notebook, the same one that had changed everything. I'd hold it and remember the man who had loved me so completely that he'd hidden a fortune just to keep our life simple and sweet. I hope you can see this, baby, I'd whisper. I hope you know that I did right by you. And somewhere, somehow, I believed he could. The Marcus Carter Technology Center opened on a sunny September morning, exactly 5 years after Marcus died. It was a state-of-the-art facility in the heart of Baltimore, offering free coding classes, job training, and technology access to anyone who needed it. I stood at the ribbon-cutting ceremony, surrounded by the community Marcus had grown up in, kids who reminded me of him, parents who worked multiple jobs just to get by, teachers who saw potential in every face. This center, I said into the microphone, is Marcus's true legacy, not the money, not the Bitcoin. His legacy is every young person who walks through these doors and discovers that they have the power to change their own life. The crowd cheered, the ribbon was cut, and as people streamed into the building, I stepped aside and watched. A young woman approached me, couldn't have been more than 20. She was crying. Mrs. Carter, I'm Jasmine. I was one of the first scholarship recipients. I graduated from MIT last year with a degree in computer science. She wiped her eyes. I just got a job at Google. I wanted to thank you. I wanted to thank your husband. I hugged her tight, this stranger who represented everything Marcus had believed in. He would be so proud of you, I said. We both are. After the ceremony, I drove to the cemetery. Marcus's grave was well tended now. I paid for fresh flowers every week. I sat down on the bench I'd installed and talked to him like I always did. Well, baby, we did it. The center is open. The foundation is thriving. And those kids, Marcus, you should see those kids. They're going to change the world. The wind rustled through the trees, almost like a response. Your family never did come around. Terrence is still in Delaware. Vivian passed away last year, Gloria called to tell me. I sent flowers but didn't go to the funeral. I hope that's okay. I hope you understand. I paused, gathering my thoughts. I miss you every day, you know. No amount of money changes that. But I found peace, Marcus. I found purpose. I'm living the life we dreamed about, just like you asked. I stood up and touched his headstone. Thank you for loving me. Thank you for protecting me. Thank you for trusting me with everything you had. I walked back to my car, the autumn sun warm on my face. They thought my husband died broke. They thought I was left with nothing. They thought they could take everything from me in my darkest hour. They were wrong. Marcus left me something far more valuable than money. He left me strength. He left me purpose. He left me the knowledge that I was loved completely by a man who would move heaven and earth to protect me. And he left me the sweetest revenge of all, a life well lived, built on the foundation of his love, thriving in spite of everyone who tried to tear it down. That's a fortune no one can ever take away.